being able to do things outside. We're able to social distance, but still be outdoors a lot because we do live in the country. But, you know, another thing that's helped me retain my resiliency, I think, is the fact that I'm able to, I work with a couple of different organizations, obviously the Upper Willamette, but also the Long Tom, which that's how I know Jody. And, you know, just being able to maintain contact through these organizations and know that the kind of things that we're doing are things that I personally believe in, and I'm able to continue that work even though it's virtual. The show goes on, and the conservation work that we're doing, you know, it still needs upkeep and maintenance, and those kinds of things. They keep my brain active. They keep me engaged with other people that I wouldn't normally see. And that, you know, Robin and I talked about how it turns out that in some ways Zoom has actually been kind of a good thing because otherwise, if we didn't have anything like this and we still had to isolate, we'd be like hermits living in caves. And so I think just being able to maintain human contact in spite of everything, it's kind of nice. And in fact, we had a meeting last night where we actually met in person. We went to Oakshire Brewing, and we had a little meeting with several of us that were on a committee, and you know, we were able to socially distance, but yet just to be able to be out and see people and interact with the world was kind of uplifting. And so, you know, it's kind of a way of getting back to normal. But yeah, just, you know, we're social creatures, and you don't realize it until you don't have that. And so to have any sort of social interaction it's a good thing. That I like that.
Great, thanks, Al. How about you, Casey?
My name is Casey Roscoe. I'm with Seneca, and I think my resiliency comes from my kids. Oh my goodness. They don't let you sit around and feel sorry for yourself. I would like to, but you know, so we're constantly going out and doing stuff. And I have to tell you, it has been so much fun. I've seen, you know, the Oregon coast through the eyes of a child like I haven't seen it in decades. And that's just been phenomenal. So I took my kids there a couple weeks ago for a week, and we went to the Hobbit Trail. I don't know if you guys have done that, but you can hike and go to the, yeah, oh my gosh, with those overhangs of mossy branches and all this stuff. And you're like, oh, cool. And then the Darlingtonia, the plants that eat the bugs and stuff. And then like you're reading all the bits of it and trying to see a fly die, which seems like super cool. And, you know, just like all that great stuff of getting out there. And like, if it was just me and my husband, I mean, we wouldn't do it. We haven't done it. But to have the kids that just force you to go out and find magic in the world, I just feel so lucky to have them. And that's been super cool.
How old are your kids?
6 and 9.
Yeah, lots of action at your house. Good for you.
Yeah.
What about you, Christine?
So I'm Christine, and I'm from Bring. Our mission is to provide vision, leadership, and tools for living well on the planet we share. I would say right now, or for the past several months, the things kind of getting me through have definitely been, the river path has been a big one, just spending a lot of time looping around, you know, pretty much every morning. A lot of the restaurants pivoting to outdoor service has been great, with the city of Eugene implementing streeteries, and other businesses that just have kind of pivoted and gotten creative with outdoor seating. That's been another thing. At least you can get happy hour and talk to people now and then. And what was the other thing we were mentioning? Sorry.
Just about you, and what are the things that are helping you with your own personal resiliency?
Yeah, so definitely those opportunities have been great. You know, it's been great to be able to actually get outside. And I also think, you know, one positive thing about people just being kind of plugged into electronically on Zoom, I feel like there's a lot of people that have not always been involved in voting and political climates and things that I think are very much involved now, because the information is so easy to find. So I think that's a positive thing. So that's it.
What about you, Robin?
Hi, I'm Robin Forster with Feel So Alive, and I'm trying a new tagline. What we do is we help support your vibrant health and abundant financial goals as you age, plus protecting the planet, because without one, it doesn't make any difference. And I think in terms of resiliency, my workload hasn't really changed. I'm finding that my mental capacity, the stress of this, is creating more awareness around self-care. And so I'm really trying to focus on that a lot more. And also keeping the words grace and patience kind of up at the forefront, because we all seem to be a little spacey these days. And I think it's the stress. I think that's everything. Was there something else I was supposed to say?
No, I think that's good. It's just there's a lot of different things that we all do to kind of keep ourselves together during this strange time. So it's just good to kind of hear what everybody else is doing and you go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I should do that. What about Doug? Did I call on you?
Oh, hi everybody. I am Doug James with Technoprint, where we know it's not just ink on paper, it's your image. And, I've been lucky enough to have my daughter, my son-in-law, and my grandkids kind of quarantining with us. And so right from the beginning, there was like a month where we didn't see them. And then after that, they decided, hey, if one of us gets it, we're all going to get it. Let's spend time together. And so I was lucky enough to continue seeing them on a weekly, sometimes bi-weekly basis, which is nice. And of course, Technoprint, we never shut down. We are classified as an essential company, and I never stopped showing up to work. So, we are careful here. We don't touch each other's computers. We've got space between work areas, and people don't touch people's machines. But back in production, but we're all here. And so I've been coming to work. I've been seeing people. Clients, are harder to get in front of, but I've been, doing the same thing everybody else is doing: more LinkedIn and more emails and more phone calls, and trying to reach out, and along with me and every other salesperson in the planet.
Thanks, Doug. Jody, did I call on you? Got to unmute yourself.
I'm Jody Summers. I'm with Essex General Construction, and we build partnerships as strong and sturdy as the buildings we construct. And I mentioned earlier that really a lot of the techniques I'm using are getting outdoors. We've got with our garden, kayaking, meeting with people outside while the weather's good. And honestly, working from home has had benefits too. Got my yoga pants on right now, and my commute is much shorter, so I'm using less fossil fuels. So I feel like in a lot of ways, I have a bit of a lighter footprint on the planet, and that feels good. So that's it for me. It's challenging here and there. Sometimes the virus, Black Lives Matter, and the politics weigh really heavily on me, especially the politics right now. And, so I have to grasp at all these kind of coping strategies I can come up with to take care of myself and keep my sanity.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sure we can all relate. It does seem like there's just so many items. It does get really complicated to try and figure out what you have to deal with mentally besides the whole new technology. I'm Teresa Brand, and I work at LTD. And as many of you know, we had a significant number of layoffs in May. And so 7 of those people worked in my department. And so I've learned all kinds of new skills around website and all kinds of electronic signs, how to put all the stuff on the electronic signs and all the stuff that bus destination signs, all this kind of weird stuff that I never had to think about. So that's actually been a stretch, but it's stretched me in a good way. But because my brain has been so busy with new stuff, it's been really important for me to walk around, to go in the woods, to kayak, all those kind of things to kind of keep balance with nature. And obviously my flowers look better than they ever look because I'm usually traveling this time of year and I'm home. And so everything looks really pretty. So I'd rather be out traveling, but that's okay. We're all making the best of it. But anyway, it's I'm learning a lot of things about resiliency and patience and grace, as others have mentioned, and I think that's been helpful. So thank you all for sharing. And let me see what the comment is. Tell me about doom scrolling, which is not good for self-care. I don't know what that is. Okay. All right. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and move on. Does anybody have any member announcements or kudos? These are, we have 5 minutes set aside for these, 30 seconds or less. You can come up with any announcements or kudos, raise your hand and I'll unmute you if you have any announcements. Jody.
I just want people to know that Sponsors Inc. is holding a virtual fundraiser over the next couple, it's still going on for another couple, today and tomorrow. And Sponsors is a great organization that Essex supports. They help people successfully transition back into the community after being incarcerated. And so I just encourage people, go check out their Facebook page. You know, you can do even a small donation. I think they've got like a $25, you know, thing you can donate on and on their silent auction, and just learn more about them. They're great.
Thanks, Jody. Any other kudos or announcements to share? I think I saw Eric on here, but then he popped off, so we'll wait to check in with him. I just have a reminder announcement that next month we'll be talking more fully about the Daniel Swantek Award, which is a $500 scholarship that Greenlane does every year for nonprofits in our region. And if the organization has not gotten the award in the last 3 years, they would be eligible to reapply. Last year we had 4 candidates apply, which is really fantastic. And Friends of Trees was awarded the scholarship. So if you know of any nonprofits that are interested in doing work around sustainability, that are working, have a project that they might need to have funded, just remind them about the Daniel Swantek Award. And then I'll send you all the application information so you have it handy if you know of anybody that wants to apply, but we'll be starting to talk more about that in October. Any other kudos or announcements? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Okay, so we'll move on. Okay, so we're going to move on to our speaker. This month we have Eric Harnison. Is that how you say it? If I butchered that, Al?
It's Hernischen.
Harnison. Okay, I should know that since I work with Chris. He's here representing the board of the Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District. They are sanctioned through the Oregon Department of Agriculture and are the public conservation organization that covers the Eugene and Springfield area. Alec has been a board member for the past 3 years and currently serves as board president. Professionally, he's a geologist and has been retired for the past 6 years, lucky you. He and his wife, Donna, moved to High Pass area west of Junction City about 5 years ago from Salt Lake. Their involvement with the district began when he worked with them and the Longtom Watershed Council to complete a stream restoration project on their property, which I'm sure he'll mention when he gives his talk. They both have become involved in local conservation organizations and efforts as they believe the great lifestyle we enjoy here in Lane County is in a large part due to the preservation and wise use of our amazing natural resources. Alec is here to talk about the work that the Soil and Conservation District does and how that enhances our resiliency. So we did have a question and answer session that Robin facilitated that will play right now, and then I'll be here to answer any questions that you have after. So give me a second to pull that up.
Hi, I'm Robin Forster with Feel So Alive, and I am past co-chair of Greenlane. And Teresa, our chair this year, asked me to step in and interview our speaker today, and I'm very excited to do that. So let me tell you a little bit about him. His name is Al, and Al, correct me if I don't say your name correctly. Hernischen? Hernischen, okay, that's very close. Okay. And Al is here representing the board of the Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District. And I know that's a mouthful, but it's an important one. And the abbreviation is UWSWCD. So when you hear us saying a little bit of alphabet soup later on, you can just assume that it's the Water District. And they are sanctioned through the Oregon Department of Agriculture. They're a public conservation organization, and they cover the Eugene-Springfield area. And he has been on the board for the past 3 years, and you're currently board president, right?
Yes, I am.
And in a previous life, you were a geologist.
There's no sound.
But, you know, I think
better?
they were probably 2 months fun.
Okay.
Elementary teachers are always happy, so I never got the chance to do that. But yeah, everybody else, though, they're fair game.
Excellent. Okay. And so talking about how you ended up here and got involved with this group is that you retired here from Salt Lake City, Utah, and ended up in the High Pass area west of Junction City. And would you show everyone your background there, Al? Because that's pretty impressive. Okay, this is Al's backyard, or front yard, excuse me. And his backyard is a winery. So pretty nice view, don't you think? Al, you can come back now.
I get
That was a really good disappearing trick.
I'm good at that when there's chores to be done, too.
Okay, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. As you all can tell, Al is a lot of fun, and it's very easy for us to go down rabbit holes, and we are not going to do that today. Well, not too much anyway. Let's see, I just want to make sure that I covered everything. Oh, and the way that you got involved with the conservation group was that the Longtom Watershed Council was doing a restoration project on your property. And you got to know them and their work, and you found out more about them, and you decided that you wanted to get involved. Is that right?
Yeah, they it was a Longtom and the Upper Willamette, and actually a couple other agencies too. But they wanted to do a stream restoration project on our property right about the time we bought it, and so they came in and did all the technical work, arranged for some financial assistance to help get the project done. And they completed a 6-acre restoration project on Owens Creek to enhance fish habitat and fish passage and, you know, just riparian restoration. So I got involved with them through that and kind of saw what conservation work really does look like. We were in Utah, we were always city dwellers, and so we had no clue what was going on out in the field, so to speak. But once we became rural landowners, we got a chance to experience what they do. And then we find out that, well, yes, they do things in the urban boundaries. It's just, they're things that you don't really notice. But yeah, I got the opportunity to serve on their board, and I thought, wow, what a great thing to do in my retirement is to sort of give back to the community and become involved in conservation efforts. And, you know, being a geologist, you kind of think, well, you know, you're in an extraction industry. I worked in the oil industry for a while too. And, you know, that gets bagged on a lot. People are, oh, you know, they're bad and they're doing this and they're doing that. And so what can I do to maybe give back a little bit to help the environment? And I feel good about doing conservation work. It's a good project to be involved in.
Oh, excellent. Okay, and that's interesting to hear about your background, because you're right. We think of the oil industry and not always with a lot of fondness. So it's good that you've now seen kind of both sides. Like with your teaching career, kind of a big span, not just a little picture, but big picture.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a big world.
Okay. Just to let everyone know who's watching this during our meeting or on the replay, I have a list of questions, and Teresa was very helpful to put some questions together, and we've talked about them a little bit, and so I'll be looking down to make sure that I ask these questions, because some of them are really fun. So let's start off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Okay, yeah. Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District, a lot of people, we've existed for a long time. We were originally formed in the 1950s, and a lot of that, and not just, you know, the Upper Willamette here in Oregon, but conservation districts nationwide were formed really in the 1930s as a result of some of the Dust Bowl issues and policies that came about. But Oregon established SWCDs back in the 50s, and so we were established in 1954. And basically our job was to conserve and protect and develop the state's natural resources. And there's an Oregon revised statute, ORS 568-210, that describes who we are and why we should exist. And so, yeah, so we're government sanctioned, but we fall under the classification of a municipal nonprofit, which is a little bit different. But yeah, we've been around now for about 65 years. And the fact that most people have never heard of us, either one, we're doing our job, which, kind of like a sporting event. If you never notice the referee, that means they've probably done a pretty good job. But also part of it too is we're small and we don't receive a terribly large amount of funding for the job that we have to do. And so we find out that a lot of people simply have no clue that we're even out there. But yeah, we are a public organization meant to serve the public.
And so when you talk about serve and being around for a long time, what is it that you all really do?
Oh, we do exactly what our name says, Soil and Water Conservation District. So like I said, we're a small district. We have one full-time district director. If any of you live in the Coburg area, a guy named Dave Downing is our full-time. He just kind of runs the district. He does field work and then handles all the paperwork and regulations and that sort of thing. We have one full-time conservation specialist, a lady named Lily Leiterman, lives here in Eugene. And then we have a part-time administrative office person, and that's it. Our annual budget every year averages about $175,000 a year. And part of the problem with that is that it goes up and down every year. Some years it's a little over 200,000. Other years we've been in the low 100s. It's a kind of a roller coaster of funding, which that winds up being a problem in trying to develop programs and maintain consistent services when you're not exactly sure where your funding is going to be. So, but we're small. We have 7 unpaid directors, board of directors. We're broken up into 5 regional districts, so we break up our boundaries. And our boundary really covers all of Lane County except for everything west of the Coast Range. So we don't include, say, Mapleton and Deadwood and Florence, but from Low Pass and Walton and Notai all the way to the crest of the Cascades, that's our service district. And so we take in Eugene, Springfield, Bonita, Crestwell, Cottage Grove, Junction City. All in all, we probably serve close to 300,000 people with that budget and with 2.5 paid staff. And so it's quite a bit of work that we do. We work on a voluntary, non-regulatory basis. We like to work with private landowners. We also get involved in a cooperative partnership of conservation groups called the Upper Willamette Stewardship Network. And that includes groups like McKenzie River Trust and Long Tom Watershed and Coast Fork Watershed, McKenzie Watershed. But we're a loose affiliation of conservation-minded groups. And so we, like I said, all our work is voluntary. We could be regulatory, but we're not. We choose not to be. We sort of think of ourselves more as a carrot than a stick. And what we like to do is educate landowners. We like to engage private landowners and educate them about what the current statutes and regulations are concerning soil and water quality. And then say, here's what you need to do, the kind of things that you're responsible for. But we're here, this is funny, we're from the government and we're here to help. But we really are. We offer technical assistance. We can arrange for financial backing in some cases. Help landowners come into compliance with what state and federal water and soil regulation quality issues are. And so we prefer education and incentives rather than beating people over the head and say you're doing the wrong thing. We don't go there unless we absolutely have to. So why do we exist? Well, I will read you something that comes from Oregon Revised Statute 568.225 because it very specifically states what our mission is. And when you stop and think about what we're responsible for doing, you can see why we're doing what we're doing right now. Like I said, we're classified as a 170C1, which is a municipal government nonprofit. And that's a little bit different than a 501c3. People think because we're a nonprofit, we're the same thing. And 501c3s are private. We happen to be publicly endorsed. And so that kind of changes our business model a little bit, how we can raise funding and do business. But we are a governmental nonprofit. But here's what the state of Oregon says. It specifically says we exist to conserve and develop water resources, control and prevent soil erosion, preserve wildlife, conserve natural beauty, promote recreational development, promote collaborative conservation efforts to protect and enhance watershed functions, protect the tax base, and promote and protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the people of Oregon. And that's our job. And we're supposed to do all of that.
Ow, that's huge.
Yeah, I know, it is.
I mean, I can think of 5 different agencies in the state that are all supposed to be doing that with huge state budgets. So how are you guys, with your 2.5 people, supposed to be doing this over Lane County? I mean, that's amazing.
I know, and that's an issue. And I think in years past, conservation districts like ours have normally been seen as more of a rural organization. You know, if you go out east to like Harney County or Malheur County, the SWCDs out there are very small because you have a few extremely large landowners. And with budgets like what we have with $175,000, you can engage in a few partners and you can do a couple of small projects, and that probably takes care of the issues out there. But what we're finding out that our funding model really hasn't changed since the 1950s. And what we were doing in 1954, from what I can tell, was good enough. But Lane County's population, look at what it's done. Even not just since the 50s and 60s, but just in the last 10 years. And that's the crux of one of our problems. And one of our challenges to overcome is how do we take this massive increase in development and population growth and still maintain the mission that we've been given. And it's a challenge. Right now, we do not have the capacity to completely carry out our mission. We can still do the small things, the rural projects, but to expand into the urban areas where the big need for our services are, that's going to be a real challenge for us.
Okay, well, speaking of challenges, and so hold some of those thoughts because I know we're going to get into that in a minute. So one of the questions, I mean, how can we not ask this during COVIDian times, is as a nonprofit, how has the COVIDian issue here, pandemic, affected your organization? And is there a silver lining, or is it all dark clouds, or what?
Well, no, there actually is a silver lining. Believe it or not, good things have happened. You know, the challenges that we've been having, conducting day-to-day operations, which I guess probably every business can say that, but we have challenges as well. Number one, we have an office on Bailey Hill Road. Well, that's been closed to the public since March, and so we normally get walk-ins. People that come in, we process a lot of soil samples. That's one of our major sources of revenue. And so people would bring in soil samples and we would process them and then get the results back to them. You know, we don't see as many soil samples coming in. A lot of people would just come in for advice. They have questions about soil management or water quality practices on their properties. And so we can't really get people coming in the door like they used to. 2 of our staff, Lily and our administrative person, have been working from home. And so that makes communications hard. You know, if there's paperwork that needs to be done or you know, goods that come into the office or something, you know, Dave is there, but he's there by himself. And so it's been difficult to do that. We've had to conduct all our meetings over Zoom for better and worse. And the hard part is Zoom meetings are tough. It's sometimes hard to judge emotions and pick up little nuances that you get in face-to-face meetings and face-to-face interactions. So, you know, that's been a challenge to learn how to navigate Zoom and do all that. Going out into the field, you know, we can't carpool on field projects anymore. Everyone has to drive out individually. And so, you know, if we have to go out to, you know, Coburg or out to, you know, Camp Creek or someplace like that, everyone's got to drive individually, and that presents logistics problems. And you know, those are some of the things that we've been dealing with. Like I said, soil testing is down for whatever reason. Either landowners are just not taking the time to try to make an appointment with us, or maybe crop rotations are down. Maybe, farming is slacked off a little bit. We don't know. But what we do know is that we're not doing as much soil testing as we used to. Obviously, our budget, we do receive some funding from Oregon Department of Agriculture, from ODA. We get about a third of our funding every year from them, and that helps cover some of our office operations. But we've already been told by the governor that, expect a cut in funding, and especially ODA, because a lot of our funding is lottery derived, and lottery revenues are down quite a bit. So that's going to affect our future funding. We're okay for this year, but for the next biennium, we don't know exactly what we're going to see. And so, that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to deal with. And then, we enter into the grant writing process, to try to cover the rest of our expenses. And grant writing is interesting for a 170C1 for anybody. But we, as a 170C1, we are not eligible to apply for a lot of grants that would go to a 501C3. They're specifically written for private organizations. And so the level of grant funding has been unstable. And like I said, for this year, we're fine, but in the years going forward, it's hard to see what the economy is going to do. How's that going to affect the grant landscape? And so we're concerned about a loss of funding. Grant writing is going to become more and more competitive, and there may be less and less grant money out there depending on how the economy affects companies that normally do a lot of grant work. And so funding is always going to be a challenge, and funding is obviously something that COVID has affected us in a negative way.
I think so many nonprofits are in the same boat. They're seeing their funding cut, and so that's going to be interesting how we as a community can address that in some positive way. And speaking of positive, has there been a silver lining at all? And I'm also watching the clock, so share with us a little bit about the silver lining, because I know that you also have some projects that you want to talk about, and
yes.
I want to make sure that we have time.
We do. Yeah, well, I think the biggest silver lining is with this slowdown and shutdown, it's caused us to examine who we are and how are we going to fulfill our mission given the challenges that we face. And one of our big problems, one of our big challenges is just getting the word out as to who we are. The public, we've existed for a long time. We do a lot of good work, but the public really has no idea who we are. So we've redone our website. We've actually hired a public relations firm to work on us with our website. So we're redoing our website. We now have a Facebook page, which we never had before. And so I think giving us a better online presence is going to let people examine. And so that's you people out there, examine who we are. We're at uwswcd.org. And so but like I said, I think it's going to give people a way to really clue in and find out who we are, which we had a website, but it wasn't really all that good because we felt like, people come see us, but now that they can't, what are we going to do that? The other thing too is there's actually been some good stuff about Zoom. And one of the things that's happened with Zoom meetings is the attendance at our board meetings. Like I said, there's only 7 of us, but a lot of times, a couple of them work full time. We have one board member that works in Salem, and having board meetings in the afternoon was just hard for them to come to. We've had 100% attendance in board meetings since March. And so that's a good thing. And then we're also able to bring in outside top speakers. We talk with people from Portland and Salem. I'm online now with you guys. And so it's given us the ability to maybe expand our footprint a little bit and broaden our horizons by being able to bring Zoom people in that wouldn't maybe normally get a chance to come down and visit with us personally, make the drive all the way down here to our office. And so I think that's wound up being a positive for us.
And do you think that there have been some surprising partnerships that have come out of this time period that we're in? And can you share a little bit about those? And then we'll have to get to the good stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely. We partner with a number of organizations. We work with, like I said, the Stewardship Network. We work with ODFW, ODA. We work with the Forest Service, Farm Service. We work with Willamette River Keepers, all sorts of groups. But one of the partnerships that we began developing, this was actually in 2018, was we we were starting to talk with ODF, the Department of Forestry, through their FireWise program, and then also Eugene Springfield Fire, about trying to do something with urban wildfire protection, mitigation, what they call the wildland-urban interface. And what we're seeing is that as our urban boundary grows out and expands into previously uninhabited territory, think like, I don't know, McKenzie View Drive or the South Hills, we see more and more people living out in this wildland-urban interface. Fire is a huge concern. And one of the things we wanted to do is work with ODF and Eugene Springfield Fire to develop a program to maybe work with landowners to help them mitigate wildfire risk on their properties. And we, our spring session with them got canceled because of COVID. And so it's kind of been put on hold a little bit, but that's something that we're trying to develop. And we're also working on developing a new relationship with the group that deals with urban waters, sort of urban runoff. We've always been good with the Pure Water Partners for the rural kinds of things. We work with OWEB and SUB and Metro Wastewater on those projects, but getting involved more in the urban core with wastewater and ground management. When we say healthy soil, we really mean healthy ground. Soil is a technical term, but it's the ground you're living on and recreating on, safe to use. And so we're finding that we're having to develop partnerships within the city boundaries of Eugene to accomplish our mission.
Excellent. Okay, in our last 2 or 3 minutes, what would you like to tell us about? I know you still have lots more to share.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I could go on and on, but we've done a lot of projects. We're involved in projects along Camp Creek. We work along the McKenzie and the Willamette. We work along the tributaries to the Long Tom. Those are rural things. But what we did is we did some polling early on, January and February. We did some polling of our constituents, which of course are the public who supports us all throughout our boundaries. And they told us there were 4 things they want us to really focus on. They want us to keep doing what we're doing in the rural areas. But what they want us to do in the urban boundaries is financial and technical assistance for fire preparation on personal property. That's what I just talked about. 80% of the people we surveyed said that that's their number one concern when it comes to water and ground quality is wildfires. So we've got to develop a program to take care of that. They want us to protect drinking water at the source, and they also want us to protect waters for recreation and wildlife. We do some of that as far as source water, drinking protection, but water protection. But the recreation aspect in the urban areas, we haven't really had a chance to do yet. They want support in local schools for natural resource and environmental education, which we have done. We actually had a grant from Cliff Bar, which was a small grant, and we worked with several schools in 4J and Bethel to send groups of school kids out to Cape Perpetua for environmental education. But that grant's run out, but there's more. I would like to see us work with at least every secondary school in Bethel and 4J and Springfield, but once again, that's a big commitment. And then the public also wants financial and technical assistance for urban agriculture and neighborhood sustainability. And so those are big things. And when you're talking about the population of Eugene and Springfield, that's going to require a big effort. We're going to have to work with our partners. We're going to have to develop new sources of funding. We've come up with plans, with water quality and agriculture, and like I was saying, the fire plan, environmental education. We can work with Measure 99 that the state passed a couple years ago. We have ideas as to how to solve these problems. It's the big challenge, of course, is going to be how do we pay for it, and that kind of is going to lead to my last statement. But it's these challenges can be met. We can do them. We can ramp up and do the work that we need to do. But we can't do it on $175,000 a year. That just isn't going to cut it. And so we've got our work cut out for us.
So if people want to donate or send money to you all, what's the easiest way? Or if they want to donate time or labor, how can they do that? And then we're going to have to end.
Yeah, we through our website we have ways to donate. We can certainly do that. Not many people donate to governmental agencies. I think a lot of people feel like, well, it's the government. They don't need money. And So we can do that. But the big thing that we have, and I know I'm not supposed to get political here, but I am going to say this, is that we as a board and an organization, we have decided to place on the November ballot a levy to help to publicly support conservation efforts. What we're going to ask for is a small donation from the public. It's going to be based on a property tax levy. And we're going to put that to a vote of the people. And we're going to see if we can convince the public that, you know, golly, what are the 3 critical resources? Air. Well, we don't do air. We have an organization that does that. But water, not much lives without clean water. And then healthy soils, the healthy ground that we live on. And we're going to ask for a small donation from the public to help us fund these projects and to do the things that the public has said, well, here's what we want you to do. And we're going to go back to them and say, okay, we can do this. We can manage it openly. We can take care of tax dollars. We're an open and honest organization. Everything we do is above board because by law it has to be. We can't hide behind, you know, private curtains. We can say, hey, look, our meetings are open, our records are open. We accept public input. Tell us exactly what you want us to do. And with funding, we can make these things happen for a better Lane County for everybody. So,
Al, thank you.
That's all I'm going to say politically.
Yeah, I have to cut you off, as you know. I know you have other commitments, and the folks who are watching this do too. And it would be wonderful to be able to go down some of these rabbit holes that you have opened up because it's fascinating.
It is. It really is. I will be online live when you broadcast on the 3rd, right?
On the first Wednesday in September. It's always the first Wednesday, and that will be the September 2nd, and we're on from noon to 1 on Facebook or on Zoom.
Okay, yeah, I will be. Well, I won't be on Facebook. I don't do Facebook, but I'm going to be online. And so if there's questions that come up, I can answer them right then and there, and I will be more than happy to entertain. And anybody that if you have a quick question comes from somebody and they can't get me, you have my contact information, and I will get back to them lickety split with an answer.
Excellent, Al. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Robin. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Okay. Okay, that was super interesting. Al, I have a question to start us off. How do you decide which projects that you guys take on? Obviously, you have some capacity limitations with volunteers and a small staff. How do you decide the projects that are the most pressing that you guys take on? And is it done like on an annual basis?
Well, that depends on the project. Some of them are ongoing, but a lot of it depends on where we can get cooperative funding. Groups can we partner up with? One of the things we're able to do is we can take some money and we can leverage that to gain additional funding through sometimes it's state or federal monies. So really, we look at it like, okay, well, where can we best use our resources? And a great example of that right now is we have it's an extreme improvement project in the Camp Creek area. Mm. And the reason that we chose to do that one was this was a large project from the state of Oregon. And they were willing to, they have what are called critical areas, and they deemed Camp Creek as one of these areas. And there's only like 6 of them going on in the state right now. But because that Camp Creek project was in our boundaries, we applied to work with, we're working with eWeb on that project, and we were able to partner with them and leverage that money to get more money to help complete this project. So a lot of it really depends on where we're going to get the most bang for our buck.
One follow-up question. Are you guys doing any work around conservation easements?
A little bit. We have the ability to hold easements. We don't currently do that right now. Okay. But I think that is legally we're allowed to do that. But currently, no, we're not involved in any of that. Yeah,
I just think in the sake of kind of land resilience, to be able to have those extra buffers and areas that you don't want to have developed, it's nice to be able to have landowners use that as conservation easements to kind of save it and to perpetuate it. I just wonder if you guys are.
The project we did on my property involved a conservation easement, but that the easement's there. But as far as the district's involvement, they've done their work as far as the construction and the funding. And so that's all been done. But yeah, the easement's still in place, just nothing active on it right now, other than we're in the maintenance phase.
Excellent. Any questions from our group? Casey has a question.
Hi, Casey.
You're on mute still, Case. There you go.
Got it. Okay, I'm fascinated by all of it. The one that stands out the most right now is is in relation to wildfire, and specifically that more than 80% of your constituents, if you will, that's their most kind of important topic. And I'm just wondering, if you had more money, how would you address that? As a for instance, is there like education you could do that is fairly simple, so you could use like the dollars for advertising, if you will, and kind of get a mass message out? Or is it more that you go to the individual locations and give them specific information for their property and what they could do? Or like, how do you guys address that?
What we see happening is, I can't speak for the whole board at this point. But if we were to pass this measure and start being able to fund a project like that, what I'd like to see us do is come up with some sort of like citizens advisory group or something. And I'd like to work through either neighborhood associations or city wards or however that works. And I'd like to see each individual group or small community within the larger Eugene Springfield area be able to assess their needs and say, oh, well, this is what we feel our community, our little group of landowners and homeowners feels like we need. And if they do really want some sort of wildland fire protection and mitigation, we would work through ODF. They have this Firewise program. We've worked with Alex Romulo from ODF. And we would like to see them, they can bring some additional funding in, but we'd like to see some sort of project where maybe we can provide the technical assistance through education. We can provide maybe some funding for materials and time and that sort of thing. And then the landowners would put in a little bit of sweat equity. They might have to contribute a few Saturdays a year, but over time they would be able to go through their neighborhood or their community, their sub-community. And do the kind of things that, we can get experts like Alex and other ODF people out there to specifically say, oh, well, your property, you need to trim these trees or you need to have, more defensible space. It's going to be a little bit different with every property and every community. But I'd like to see, if we're going to use the taxpayers' dollars, I'd like to see the taxpayers have a direct say in how this money is going to be used. And so education is certainly a large part of it, but I think actual, let's put the gloves on and get to work, and let's actually do something to let these homeowners help protect themselves. And because not every community is going to need probably wildfire protection. If you're in the fringes of the city boundaries, yes, but if you're living in the East University neighborhood or something, maybe not so much. They might have other needs. But from the wildfire perspective, I'd like to see every community have a say in how their money is going to be spent for them going forward.
Yeah, that's a really important question, Casey. That's really going to be, I think, increasingly more and more of a big deal. Casey, do you have any follow-up questions?
Well, like a million, but I'll just ask a quick one. How much are you asking for the levy, and what are you giving yourself for odds of getting it?
Yeah. Oh, excellent question. We wrote the levy. Well, first of all, the odds. When we polled the public back in January and February, of course, it was before the COVID thing, so I don't know how attitudes have changed, but we asked the public, that's where we got this 80% response. And we were surprised by that people said, oh yeah, we're really worried about fire. But we, once, they said, well, we don't really know who you are. So our polling people did a little, 1 minute blurb about who the conservation district is. And then people responded, and 62% of the people said, oh yeah, I could get on board with that. I think that would be a good program to support. And so that's why we decided to go ahead with the levy. Was at 62%, that seems like, well, nothing's a slam dunk in politics. We all know that. Yeah. But, we feel like, well, there seems to be general support. So what we said was, what's a reasonable number that we can ask? And it's not just for now. You always need to ask for more than what you're going to use initially, because number one, it takes time and material and people to ramp up. But also I have to be able to think another 65 years down the road. I'm, as a public servant and a board member of the SWCD, I have to think about the long-term viability of the organization. That's one of my responsibilities. And so we're thinking, well, I know conservation work can be expensive now, but what's it going to cost 10 years from now or 65 years from now? So we have to sort of have a hedge for the future. And we're going to ask as a maximum 7 cents per thousand. So what that would mean is for every $100,000 of assessed value on your property, you would pay $7. And that would be the maximum it could ever go. The problem is we can't really viably go back to the public in the future and say we want more. There's a way to do it, but you don't want to go there politically, and because it could cost you your entire organization. So in the future, it could very well be that we need the 7 cents. But what we're thinking is we're probably going to start out at maybe 2 cents, which would be $6 a year for the average Eugene homeowner. I think right now the average assessed value is about $300,000. And so that would be basically a $6 a year tax increase for homeowners. And I know it's taxes. Everyone complains about taxes. No one likes them. I do the same thing. I get my tax bill every year and it's like, holy cow. But you pay it because, someone said taxes are the price you pay for civilization. So, but it would be small. It would take us a long time to ramp up. And what we learned by getting numbers from the county is that every penny that we assess the public will generate $300,000 to $350,000 for us. And right now, it would be a couple more years before the monies would be collected and start rolling in. So that would give us time to ramp up. But that would generate $700,000 a year or so. And right now we could spend $700,000. We don't want to go too high, because one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to start taking people's tax dollars and then just sitting on them. That's where government gets a bad name. And so we're going to have to be able to spend what we take in. And we look at with the programs that we already have going on and the programs that the public has said they want us to start implementing, we can do $700,000 a year. So I'm thinking we're probably going to be, realistically, I would say probably 2 cents to start with. And that would be, who knows how long, but it takes time to ramp up.
So one last question, and then we're going to wrap the meeting just to keep people on time. Any other questions? I really appreciate it, Al. It's very interesting, and also it's so important to have our soils and our water in good shape in order to have long-term resiliency. So I really appreciate the work that you and your group is doing, and your connections with the Long Tom and those other groups. That all together, that synergy is really important and really helps the quality of life that we all enjoy and we will into the future. So just really supportive of what you're doing and think it's really amazing. So thank you so much for time and talent.
Yeah,
and sharing your
It's
knowledge.
so weird watching yourself on TV. Well, that was.
Yeah, I feel your pain. You have no idea. So thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Be thinking about future topics for upcoming meetings. Also, if there are people that that might be good candidates to be on subcommittees, let us know. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to really make this organization continue to be very important for our members and of great value. And so to continue to do the good work that we've been doing. Let me make sure I've gotten everything here in the notes. Thank you again. Next month, we'll be meeting, I believe it's on the 2nd, and a topic will come out next week. I'm in the process of setting up an interview with that particular individual. So once that's all in the bag, you'll hear about it, and we'll be looking for our fall schedule. If you have any ideas, again, please let us know. Also, we'll be contacting the City of Eugene because they're lining up candidates for Bold Steps Award. So if your organization or someone that is doing great work wants to be thinking about applying for Bold Steps, I think now's the time. And so we'll be announcing those at our December meeting. I'm pretty sure it'll be virtual at this point, but we'll be connecting with the city about their top 3 candidates and that whole process that we've done in the past. So look for that.
It's also a prerequisite to be Rethink certified. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me.
That's a super good point. I forgot about that.
My email in the chat.
That's great, Christine. That's right. I forgot they had to be Rethink certified. So that's great news. So anyway, thanks again for everyone's participation. I know your time is of value, and really great seeing everyone and hearing your stories about your own personal resiliency. It's a interesting time, and we're all kind of getting the hang of the electronic thing and finding balance around fun and life and enjoyment in this kind of virtual universe, and then still getting our jobs done. So how does that all work? It's a strange conundrum we're in. So thanks again, and I will see you guys soon. Stay in touch by email, or we'll see you next month. Bye, gang.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
soon.
Appreciate the offer.
Be safe this weekend.
Yes.